And so we come to the best Toy Story film. Which means it's all downhill from here with the sequels. Oh, joy. But Toy Story 2 is and remains the best of all four of them. It is probably the best Pixar film ever made, in my opinion. At least it's the best of all of the ones that I've seen, and I've seen quite a few of them. I haven't seen many of the ones of the late 2010s and all the Cars sequels. I haven't seen many of the sequels. I've seen the first installments. I've got Cars, I've got The Incredibles, I've got Monsters, Inc., Finding Nemo, all of that stuff. But I don't have their sequels. The only one with sequels that I ever really cared about was Toy Story. And maybe The Incredibles. I may get that one eventually. I don't know. But Toy Story was always just the one that I wanted to follow these characters, especially if it had the same creative team behind it. And Toy Story 2 had that same creative team behind it. It continued to have Mr. Lasseter involved, and we brought back all of the voice actors, pretty much. If there's somebody different, it was so unnoticeable that I never noticed it in the dozens and dozens of times that I've seen this, and the first one as well. We expand upon the backstory of Woody in this one, because if the first film was mostly about Buzz and finding his place in the world, then this one is about Woody and relearning his place in the world, and also finding value in who he is and where he came from, which I do have some problems with. Just a few. For example, with Buzz Lightyear here, when the first film is introduced and it comes out, Buzz knows his backstory. He knows where he came from. He knows Emperor Zurg. He will immediately be able to identify him. He knows the backstory of the Buzz Lightyear Star Command story and all of that. He comes programmed with it for some unknown reason. Woody doesn't know about Woody's Roundup? Now, I can understand that being a 50s toy in the 90s, it's been quite a while. Maybe you forgot where you came from. So I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt to have forgotten who he was. Maybe in the 50s, when he was first unboxed, he was like Buzz, and he knew all about Woody's Roundup, and Jessie, and Bullseye, and Stinky Pete, and all that other, the TV show, all the merchandise. Who knows? Maybe that's how Woody was back in the day. In fact, I would honestly, definitely, not just probably, I would definitely love a prequel showing Woody in the 50s, first being unboxed. That would be a great idea, wouldn't it? Showing 50s aesthetic, 50s toys coming to life, and all that good stuff, man. That would be a pretty cool idea. It would probably take some research to learn about all sorts of 50s toys and all that stuff, but hey, who knows, right? Well, apparently Lasseter isn't with Pixar anymore, as far as I know, which means I don't want Toy Story to continue without that creative team, the creative head, the creative top echelons who were behind these two genius films, and the third one, which Lasseter was also part of. I want to keep that creative, that big tip, the tippy tip, intact, if that makes sense. Because that usually makes a show have what we like to call consistency. When a show goes on for too long, the original creative heads end up leaving. And this is the same for any type of IP, be it a video game like Final Fantasy, or a platformer like Spyro, or Ratchet and Clank, or any of those other stuff, as time goes on, those original creators who created that first game, who had that first idea, who came up with the stories for the first few games, or the first few movies, or the first few episodes of a TV show, the first few seasons of a TV show, they will move on. The actors might still stay around, probably under contract or whatever, but the creators, the behind-the-scenes geniuses who wrote and crafted these characters into life will move on. They will go away. And when these stories continue, they're made under different creative lenses. They take different creative pathways, if I'm to be very, very kind here. But luckily I don't have to talk about that today. Toy Story 2 is very good. It's still very good. The only issue I ever had was Woody's story and but hey, he's a 50s toy apparently from Toy Story 4 lore, which means in that long time span he forgot who he was, which makes sense, which is fine. It's fine. It's perfect. It's fine. It's serviceable. It's fine. So Woody gets ripped. It's what happens when a toy is played with for so very long. You play with a toy, it's your favorite toy, and eventually, maybe after a bad fall or something, that toy will suffer a break. Take a look at my perfect cell here. This is technically not the original perfect cell. This is comprised of two separate perfect cells put together into one cyborg perfect cell. Because I've had two perfect cells, and both perfect cells broke. Which means the kid, when you break your toy, you make a choice. If that toy is valuable to you, you will probably find a way to repair it. Well, Sal lost his wings here. I never repaired those. But then again, I always thought they got in the way of him using his kicks and all that other stuff as a kid, and I was like, these wings are getting in the way. I don't care about them anymore. I'm glad they're gone. So now his arms can move, all that better articulation about the wings getting in the way. And as you can see, well, you probably can't see, and this leg is kind of see-through in the blue part. This leg is solid. This leg is, I think, from the Irwin Toys Perfect Cell line, or is it Jag specific? I'm not too sure. There are two different versions of the exact same figure. They have the exact same figure shape and all of that good stuff. The inside of these figures, I know I'm going off topic here, but that's just how it goes here, is that they have each limb has this little plastic circular thing, and it's connected to two little holes here so that the limb can move. But if you pop the torso off in half, there's a little seam down the middle here. You can pop that torso open, and you can remove all four limbs and the head. They're just placed there. There's a little circular limbs so that they can have articulation. That's it. And these limbs here, like these two legs here, they're placed together kind of with this little plastic little wheel here. It's a wheel axle or whatever. I don't know what you want to call it, but that's what enables the leg to move through this plastic little thing. It's a little thingy. I'm not good with terms. Either way, bottom line, if you like your toy enough, you will fix it. And technically, Sal is technically fixed. He could stand up. He can still be used. He doesn't have his tail or his wings, but he has been heavily played with since the early 2000s. And to me, that makes him priceless. And to Andy, that's what Woody was. Woody was going to go with Andy to cowboy camp. But then, during a session of playtime, his arm got ripped. His mom set him up on the top shelf because Andy didn't want to take him to cowboy camp. Because he thought, his arm might break while he's at cowboy camp. It's a ruffian roughhouse out there, you know. It's quite a rough day for a sheriff with a broken arm, you know. But Woody didn't know that. Woody got afraid. He thought now that he was placed on the top shelf, Andy wouldn't want to play with him anymore. So he was worried that his kid had lost faith in him because his arm was broken. And who knows? Maybe my perfect cell, when his arm first broke off. You see, this arm is from the older cell. This arm's from the older cell, and the two old new arms. This really is a major hybrid. Okay, this leg is the only leg from the new cell. These three limbs are from the old cell. This torso is from the new cell. This head is from the old cell. It's crazy, I know, but hey, what can you do? It's just... But who knows? If Cell was actually a living character like these Toy Story characters, and his arm had popped off, just like Woody's arm had popped off, maybe he thought, oh no, it's curtains for me. Well, no. You see, with all of my figures, if an arm popped off, I just put it back in. I found a way, and I put it back in. Sometimes it's not exactly the best procedure. As you can see here, this arm is very, very loose. It has no articulation left. It is gone, you know, but at least it's on the body, you know, at least it's on his body. And, of course, I have other figures that still survive to this day from that chaotic childhood period that have limbs that were super glued on, because the little circular piece here that gets hooked onto the torso here broke off completely. So I just super glued it on, and then the arm remained stuck, and you couldn't move it at all. And that's how that Trunks was. That Trunks figure I had a stuck head. The head popped completely clean off, so I had to super glue it back on. But then that's how you fixed your toys, you know. And I love that attention to detail. I love the attention to detail here, where the film goes into how a kid feels when the toy breaks, and if that toy is that valuable to him, he will fix him. Because when Woody's arm breaks, Al, who steals him, fixes it, but then Stinky Pete breaks his arm again, and then Andy fixes it again. Andy fixes Woody's arm. He sews it back together himself. Self-fixing of his toys. I love that. I did that, you know? So, that was very good. Very good. But of course, Woody gets afraid and he loses his confidence, you know, and he loses his confidence. How long will Andy play with him? Andy's gonna grow up someday, and he's gonna be left on a shelf to rot. And I'm looking up at a lot of my figures who are on a shelf and haven't been moved. Anyways, so Woody is very worried about that, and rightly so, because Andy will grow up. But, as he would later say in the film, he wouldn't miss it for the world, and that is a beautiful thing. But the best reason why Toy Story 2 is so good is the game, of course, honestly. And I played the game before I watched the movie. I'm just going to be completely and totally honest with you. I played the game before I had to watch the movie. And then when I watched the movie, that opening cinematic with Buzz entering Zurg's planet, and then you fake out and see that it was Rex playing a video. Oh my goodness, that was amazing. It was fantastic. It was absolutely incredible. It was one of the best sequences I had ever seen as a kid. Oh gosh. I would rewind that tape just to watch that opening segment. Oh my goodness. So, Buzz realizes that Woody is gone. He's been stolen by Al, and he figures out where he's been taken, where Al's toy barn is, and he gathers up some of the mainstay toys, Rex, Ham, Mr. Potato Head, and they go out on an adventure to go rescue Woody. And I love this. I loved it. I loved every single moment of it. I love the sequences with the traffic cone. It's one of the funniest sequences in the whole movie. I loved Buzz's action hero moments where he would figure out all sorts of obstacles to get to places on the fly. I love the second Buzz that shows up with the blue belt, who is just as delusional as the Buzz from the first movie. I loved everything about this movie, and there's not too much I can say story-wise that either you haven't already heard from somebody else or you haven't already seen this movie 100 times yourself. What more can I say about Toy Story 2 other than that it surpasses the first in every way? Animation wise, of course, everything gets polished, everything gets cleaned up. It is one of the best looking Pixar movies of that earlier period. I'd argue it looks better than some of the movies that came out after Toy Story 2. It has some of the best voice work that I've ever heard in a Pixar movie in years. And of course, it has some of the best speeches for Buzz. Buzz is standing in front of the farewell address of cable cinematic programming. And if you don't remember the 90s and cinematic cable programming and all that stuff, sometimes you would end your broadcast day to static. Sometimes there wasn't a 24-hour broadcast day. Sometimes these cable channels would have paid programming, or they would end the broadcast day to paid programming from 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. or something, and then go back to the broadcast day or something. And so Buzz is standing in front of one of those TV channels that shows the American flag playing the national anthem while he's making a speech saying, "Woody once risked his life to save me. I couldn't call myself his friend if I weren't willing to do the same." And then he just says, "Now let's move out!" And the flag starts waving, and then there's this amazing cut. It goes, "We now conclude our broadcast day." The screen is panning out, and we're no longer with Buzz and the team. We're with Woody at Al's toy barn, and we see Al has fallen asleep on the couch watching the same channel. That was genius. That was a genius wipe. I loved that. That was great stuff there. Another great thing was Buzz explaining to Woody why he came to rescue him after, and why he crossed the whole town, which is a big adventure, as you can see, as you got to play that adventure in the video game. And when you finally get to reunite with Woody, Buzz ends up explaining why he did that. He came all this way because he believed what a toy told him in the first movie, which is exactly what Woody told him. Woody was pretty much the antagonist. Buzz may have been Woody's antagonist, but Woody was the villainous character at the start of the film, through jealousy. And then Woody and Buzz became best friends afterwards. And Buzz valued that friendship. And so he came to Al's penthouse to collect Woody and bring him back to Andy's house, because Andy would have been devastated if he found out that Woody was missing. Because you know how that goes. Woody would have been missing, and his mom would have said, "Oh, Woody was probably taken by some guy at the yard sale." And then, his mom would be pretty savvy. His mom would be pretty smart. She would probably know it was Al from Al's toy barn who took Woody. And so she probably would have made a trip over to see him. And he'd probably get into some financial trouble over that, legal trouble over that. And Woody would have been picked up eventually after that, but that's being very, 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 very generous with the plot. We're just being very loose with the plot here, saying the kid would be devastated if Woody was decided to stay at a museum, to live forever behind a glass and never be loved again. Some life, right? There is so much I can continue talking about with this film that would end up making this feature length in a review, just talking about every single scene that I could recall off the top of my head, or connecting it to some other personal life, bringing out another cell or something. But I don't feel like I need to do that. I think Toy Story 2, just by its existence, stands as one of the best films in the Pixar catalog, and it is definitely their best sequel that they have ever made. It's definitely one of the best movies that they have ever made, if not the best. And that's probably mostly nostalgia talking, because naturally, animation technique wise, Toy Story 4 looks beautiful. Toy Story 3 looks beautiful. And a lot of the newer Pixar movies look beautiful. The animation is so crisp, there's so much talent on display. But this one has heart. And that means far more to me.